Hello and welcome, everybody, for another edition of Virtual Yoga. I'm Mike, the instructor. Looking forward to teaching you again today. And what we're doing today is a sequence called the Meridian Exercises. And this entire sequence is essentially going to work every single joint in your body. And when I mean every joint, we're talking about the toes and working all the way up to the neck. So we're going to do this for increasing mobility, especially for a time like this where we're all confined into small quarantined areas. It's important for us to continue to keep moving our bodies. So let's start our practice off in a comfortable position. Again, that could be laying down on a yoga mat, or it could just be sitting on the floor. You could even sit in a chair with this one, but wherever you're most comfortable, again, go there and close your eyes. You start your practice off paying attention to your breath. I want you to breathe low in your belly, low in your diaphragm. If you're not sure what this is, or if you want to double check if you're doing it correctly, place a hand on your stomach below your belly button. You're going to feel the stomach expand when you take an inhale. It's going to contract when you take an exhale. And this is belly breathing. It's the breathing technique I recommend for our practice. It's a slower paced practice. We want to slow the body down. Breathing low in your diaphragm will help with that. It's going to slow your heart down. It's going to slow your nervous system down. It's going to slow your mind down as well. Once again, your mind may wander in the practice. Don't beat yourself up if it does. It's all a part of this. But if you need something to pay attention to, remind yourself your breath is always there for you. It's always present. It's something you can focus on throughout the course of this practice, just the quality of your breathing. And once again, we're doing our Meridian Exercises, a sequence to take every single joint to the full range of motion, just to loosen up everything in the body. But with this, as always, use your better judgment. If your experience tells you to not do a certain movement, then this is fine. Just do whatever you can, whatever your body will allow. But this is one of the more, not necessarily aggressive forms of yoga, but one of the most passive styles, aside from doing a yin yoga practice. And again, settling into the practice. Go ahead and take a few deep breaths. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and open your eyes. And we're going to start our practice off today with our toes. So you'll have the legs out in front of you. I want you to just kind of spread out your toes as far as you can. And then I want you to clench, going back and forth between spreading and clenching. Never to the point of strain. I don't want you to start cramping in the soles of your feet. Sometimes that will happen if you squeeze too hard. But just enough to get everything going. We're going to work the ankles a little bit as well. Point your toes forward and then bring them back towards you. When you point them forward, you'll feel the tops of the ankles. When you bring them back towards you, you'll feel the back of the ankles. Flexion and extension, what these ranges of motion are called. And when you're ready, go ahead and bring a foot in. Does not matter which side you start with, but I want you to take your big toe. I want you to bend it forward. I want you to bend it back a few times. You can even turn it in and turn it out a few times. That's called passive rotation. And then you'll rotate your entire toe into a circle. You go a few times one way, you go a few times the other way. Give a little pinch and pull on the nail, and then move on to the next toe. And it's the same deal. Forward and back, turn it in, turn it out with passive rotation, and then rotate it into a circle. A few times one way, a few times the other. Pinch and pull, move on. If you can crack your toes, that's just a bonus. We'll actually talk about cracking as we go on in this practice, how cracking can be a very therapeutic thing for you depending on the type of crack that it is. Forward, back, turn it in, turn it out, rotation, rotation. And once you're done with the last toe on this side, don't go to the other side. We're going to do this one side at a time. So you'll have the same foot and start massaging the sole of the foot, the top of the foot, heel, the Achilles tendon, just rubbing everywhere. I like to specialize massaging into the sole of the foot, the plantar fascia. A lot of people out there will have plantar fasciitis at some point in their life. Typically, those who have higher arches tend to develop this. Not a bad thing, but just one of those things that we have to work with. Everybody has some kind of ailment in their body that they have to work. We're going to work our ankles next. Nothing much. You can either pick the ankle up and hold it, or either way is fine. Some people will prefer to grab the foot and rotate it. Others will just rotate it itself. Either way, again, whatever you're more comfortable with. I personally prefer to grab it and rotate. You go a few times one way and a few the other. It's the golden rule of yoga. If you go one way, you must go the other. And when you feel your balance, whenever that is, place the foot down, and you're going to start to massage the calf and the shin. And nothing too crazy here. Try to find those tender spots. Those really tight spots that you work into. You'll probably start noticing a little bit of this throughout this practice. And these are definitely areas you want to be spending some extra time on, not just in this practice, but even outside of this particular practice. Like, for example, my calves are very tight, and this is something that I often stretch, especially with downward dogs, a few other postures here and there. I might show a few, but again, today's practice isn't really about the stretching, but more so just the mobility of the actual joints, taking them to their full range of motion. And we're going to work our knee next. I'll show you from the side here. Same leg, right? You're going to extend, point your toe, and you'll bring it back in, extend and point the heel. And just back and forth between the two. Pointing the toe and pointing the heel. Each creates a different stretch, a different feel. It's always worth doing both. Otherwise, you would miss part of this, right? And when you feel like you've worked your knee out enough, you can place that foot down. And we're going to massage the bigger muscles of the same leg. So you start working into your quad. You'll start working your inner thighs, your hamstrings, IT bands, hip flexors, glutes, right? Really just rubbing all over. Here, there's not really a right or wrong on the massage here. Again, just trying to find those tender spots. We'll be doing a few stretches today, nothing too crazy. I'll try to show a few at least. We're going to be working our hip next. We'll do a few things with it. The first thing that I want you to do is hug your knee up to the chest. Again, don't worry about how high it goes, but just giving it a little bit of a hug. You might feel your IT band, the outside of this leg, being stretched. And we'll hold it for maybe about 20 seconds. Nothing too much. The next movement, you're going to place the foot down, maybe on the quad of the other leg, and gently push down on the knee. Don't jam it, just enough to take it to its full range of motion. This is external rotation here with your femur, your big leg bone. So if you can't get the knee to touch the floor, don't worry about it. But something I want you to take note of, how far can you turn this leg out? And then when we get to the other side, how far can you turn that one out? You can probably see a difference. And back and forth between the two. Hugging the knee up to the chest. Place that foot down, push the knee down. We're We're going to do one more thing with our leg, with this particular hip. I prefer to do this one cradling the leg. We're going to take the hip to full range of motion. Maybe I'll show you from the side here. So you're going to rotate the hip. Full range of motion. Nothing too crazy, right? Just taking it to the full range to loosen up the joints. You go a few times one way and a few the other, right? Same deal. And when you feel the balance with it, go ahead and place that leg down and just take a moment. Go ahead and close your eyes. Observe the difference between the two, right? We've only worked the one leg. I'm sure it feels a little bit different again as opposed to the other. For the sake of balance, let's do the other side. Whatever side you need to be on. But again, you're starting with the toes. Now, big toe, bend it forward and back a few times. Turn it in, turn it out a few times, passive rotation. And then you'll rotate it into a circle a few times one way and a few the other. Pinch and pull on the nail, move on to the next toe. And the reason why we give it a little bit of a pinch and pull on the nail is it's said to be believed that the meridians of the body, the energetic channels of your body, they start and they end in your fingernails and in your toenails. So you give it a little bit of a squeeze, just a little bit of extra stimulation there. You may have felt this before, for some people, if you've ever had a manicure or a pedicure before, sometimes you'll actually experience a little bit of this energetic change. Once you're done with the last toe, and again, no rush to go there, but at some point when you're done, you'll start massaging the sole of the foot. Top of the foot, heel, Achilles tendon, really, again, just rubbing everywhere. No right or wrong. Once again, you might find those tender spots. Again, for me, plantar fasciitis is something I deal with on a regular basis. What I'll do, a lot of times I'll just massage the sole of the foot. Sometimes I'll even take like a tennis ball and I'll just kind of roll my foot out onto it. We won't really do it in this class, but maybe there will be another day where I'll show you how to use like tennis balls and foam rollers and things like that that can help loosen up your body. We're going to work the ankle next. Cradle that leg. You're going to rotate the foot. Now you can either grab the foot and rotate it, or you can just do it by itself. Either way is fine. Again, I just personally prefer to grab it and rotate. A few times one way and a few the other. Do your best to balance. When you feel your balance, place that foot down, massage the calf and the shin. Again, nothing crazy. Find those tender spots. Certain you got some somewhere. Everybody has a tight spot somewhere. And one of the reasons why I enjoy teaching this particular sequence so much is because it's going to show you some ways to move those areas, to loosen up those areas that are probably tight for you. And as simple as this is, it can be very effective. And sometimes it's not necessarily, the dynamic of how intense is the practice. It can just be small movement that makes a huge difference for you. We're going to work the knee next. Again, I'll show you from the side. You're going to extend, point the toe, bring it back in, extend, point the heel, going back and forth between the two. Nothing too crazy. We're going to massage the bigger muscles of the legs next. So the quad, which is the top of the leg, you can work. The inner thighs. Hamstrings are the back of your legs. IT bands, the outside. Hip flexors are more towards the top of the pelvis. Glutes, your butt muscles. Just be a little bit more crude about it. Again, just a nice massage here. You know, these are definitely areas you could always use a tennis ball. Some people like to actually just roll them out on their quads, IT bands, inner thighs and hamstrings. Foam rollers work here too. But I'm going to assume not everybody has these props, so that's why we just massage it. Be just as effective. We're going to work the hip next and do a few things. Go ahead and hug your knee up to the chest. Probably feel again the IT band stretching here. It's the outside of the leg. And I told you to take note of this next one. But on this side, resting the foot on the quad, very gently pushing down on the knee. Does this side turn out a little bit farther than the other, or is it the opposite? Maybe this side doesn't turn out so far. For me personally, this is my left side. I have more external rotation with this particular femur. And it's not a sign of inflexibility with my right side. It's just a sign of being different with the skeleton. And the two sides of your body, you're asymmetrical with your bones. So you'll never do poses the same way on both sides. Especially with the hips, one side typically has more external rotation than the other. Hey, buddy. This is Domino, in case you're curious to see another friendly little furry buddy. You can do some yoga with us. Back and forth now between the two, if you're not already doing so. What are you doing? I love the plants. They know they're not supposed to touch it, so they will. There you go. No, don't bite that. Say hi for everybody. Thanks. Okay. And we have, thank you. We have one more thing we're going to do with our leg. We're going to rotate the hip to the full range of motion. Again, I'll show you from the side. Maybe it's a little easier to see. Work around your furry friend if you have one. But the full range of motion. Right? Sorry, bud. A few times one way, a few the other. Right? Always doing your best to balance. Like I said, it's the golden rule of yoga. And when you feel your balance, place that leg down. And once again, just go ahead and close your eyes and feel the difference. You might be able to sense that whole leg has changed. Now, some sensations you might feel, it just feels warmer, it feels loose, there's just a lot of blood flow, energetic flow. It's exactly what it is. So it's important to take the note of what you just did. When you're ready, we're going to start working up into the upper body. But to keep everything going up, we're going to start working out our spine a little bit. And this is pretty simple. I want you to just twist from side to side. A little bit of back and forth. Good job. Whenever your pets do a little bit of yoga, please encourage them to do it. Okay, good job. When you're ready, coming back to your seated position, we're going to work into our hands. Next, I want you to spread out your fingers as far as you can take them. And I want you to clench and make a fist. And you'll do it with a thumb on the outside to start. But when you alternate, have the thumb on the inside. Back and forth, thumb on the outside, thumb on the inside, just to wake up your thumbs a little bit. And we're going to work our fingers like we did our toes. Shake it off when you're ready. It doesn't matter which side you start with. Take your thumb, bend it forward and back a few times. Don't worry about turning it in and turning it out. Your fingers don't really have the passive rotation quite like your toes do. So I just rotate, a few times one way, a few the other. Pinch and pull, move on to the next finger. Back and forth with it. Again, if you can crack, not a bad thing. This kind of crack that you're most likely experiencing, if you are feeling it, it's a release of what's called fixation. Fixation means your joints are temporarily stuck together. And it's a good thing to crack, because if we leave our joints stuck together for too long, we're talking like years on end, at some point the joint can potentially fuse, and then it can turn into a bone. And that's not something you want to have happen to you. So if you fuse a joint, it means you're no longer able to move it. So go ahead and do the other side. We're going to do the upper body at the same time here. I think you just feel it more in your toes and your feet and your legs when you do it one side at a time. Our fingers, our hands are a little more dexterous. You might not feel it as much. Forward and back a few times, rotation a few times. Done with that last finger. And again, no rush to go there, but when you are done with the last finger, you start to massage your palms and the back of the hands. Might even find some tender spots around here. Usually it's around the base of the thumb. Not always, but most of the time. Do the other side when you're ready. Shake it off when you're ready. We're going to work our wrists a little bit. Go ahead and rotate into full range. Crack, crack, crack. A few times one way, a few the other. Doing your best to balance. Once you feel your balance, shake it off. And we're going to stretch the wrist. I think this one is easier to do one at a time. Have one hand open. You're going to take the other hand and pull down. Now you can either hold it, or you could always place this palm down against the floor. Either way is fine. But it is the inside of your wrist, the belly of the forearm, that's going to get stretched. This is a really important area to stretch, especially if you suffer from carpal tunnel syndrome. What you're stretching directly right here, this is the carpal tunnel. Right? You got the floor, you got the walls, you got the ceiling to it. So we can prevent a lot of those issues by stretching it with this particular pose. Usually about 30 seconds, roughly. When you're ready, slowly release, move it around a little bit. And then you got to do the other side, right? So you got the open hand, pull it down, hold it, or you can place that palm down against the floor. Same deal inside of the wrist, right? Belly of the forearm is our target, but two sides are different. So if you get here and notice that, not abnormal at all. It's a pretty common thing to have a tighter side, or a side that just has a less of a range of motion to it. Again, it could be a flexibility thing, but it could also just be your skeleton. When you're ready, really slowly lift it up, shake it off a little bit. And we'll do one more stretch for our wrists. You're going to take your hands, you're going to flip them over and have the back of your hands down, maybe against the floor. Some people like to have them against their legs. Either way is fine. I usually will keep it in front of me on the floor. But it's now the back of the wrist that's the target area. Same deal, about 20-30 seconds. You could always hold these for longer. I wouldn't really go longer than a minute in these. Typically with smaller joints, there's not as much connective tissues there like the hips and spine. With the hips and spine, if you joined us for yesterday's practice, they have a lot of connective tissue that's holding them together. And you could hold those poses from anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes and it would be fine. When you're ready, slowly let out. But with a smaller joint, usually about 30 seconds to a minute. Elbows next. They don't do much. I'll show you the one we're going to do first. Opening and closing. This is all they do, right? They're a hinge joint like a door. So they open and they close. Every now and then somebody will ask me, can we work our elbows in class? I look at them like, that's what you got. That's all you got, buddy. And we'll do one more thing for the elbows. It's going to be the same range of motion, just done a little bit differently. Sorry about this. Hey, buddy. You want to join us for a second? Okay. So you're going to take your arms and go out to the sides with it. Cool. So out, and then back in. Right? Cats don't really have this range of motion, unfortunately. Otherwise, I would do this with them. We might do some pet yoga at some point. Once we get there, if this little boy will cooperate. Thank you. Why don't you stay right here? Thank you. Okay. Shake it off when you're done. We're going to work into our shoulders next. We're just going to take them to full range. There's going to be a day where we actually do a little bit of a shoulder routine. But for today, let's just rotate. Hands to shoulder blades and rotate. And there it is. A few times one way, a few times the other. Just so you know, if you're ever doing this on your own, you can be as systematic about this as you want. I just kind of feel it out, but you could always go 10 times one way, 10 times the other, or even more, even less. Either way is fine. But just for the sake of us saving time, I usually only do it for a few rotations. But you shake it off. We're going to do a few things with the neck. And the first thing that we're going to do with the neck is let's just go ahead and turn it to your right. And we'll hold it for a little bit. Just to the point where you start meeting resistance. Don't push past this. When you're ready, slowly release, then you're going to turn it to the left, or whatever your other side is. When you're ready, come back to your center. We'll do a few more neck stretches. Go ahead and lift your chin up towards the ceiling. Try to not crank back in your neck, but lift up with your chin. It's a slightly different emphasis. When you're ready, release. Then you're going to bend the neck forward. If you can get your chin to the chest, go for it. But if not, don't force it, right? Some people will never get their chin down to the chest. But it's the back of the neck that's the intention of the stretch. When you're ready, release. Move around a little bit. We'll do one more bonus stretch for the neck. This one might be a little hard to demonstrate, but I'm going to do my best here. Imagine in front of you is 0 degrees, 90 and 90 on your shoulders here. So what you're going to do, you're going to bend your head forward. Let's say take the right hand, put it on the back of your head, pull your head down to the right to about 30 to 60 degrees, and you'll feel the back left side of your neck stretching. Again, with these, about 20-30 seconds. When you're ready, release. Move it around. And then we'll do the other side. So you'll have the left hand on your head. Pull it down to the left to, again, about 30 to 60 degrees, wherever that sweet spot is for you. But it's now the back right side of the neck. Getting the stretch. And when you're ready, release. And to finish up our practice, we're going to take the neck into its full range of motion. So a nice big circle here. Go a few times one way and a few the other. Do your best to balance. When you feel your balance, go ahead and rest your neck in the center. And that is the Meridian Exercises. You took every single joint in your body into its full range. Again, that's essentially all it is. Not the most active style of practice, not the fanciest style, but you know what? Sometimes it's not a matter of how fancy is it, what are the aesthetics, how does it look? It's more about the feeling, and that's what I truly believe whenever I'm doing a yoga practice. How does it make me feel afterwards? And hopefully it makes you feel a little bit better like it does to me. So let's end our practice in Shavasana. You can sit down, you can lay on the floor. Again, wherever you're comfortable, go there and close your eyes. Nothing to see at this point, just more to feel, pay attention to. Focusing on the breath again, breathing low in your belly, low in your diaphragm. Turn your senses, your awareness within. And for these last few minutes, just go ahead and again, observe all the changes you have made with your practice. But don't judge it, don't label it, just observe the changes for what they are. No formal ending to our practice. I want to thank you all for watching and joining me. It's been my pleasure. Namaste.